So the practice of Yin Yoga is about stillness and bringing our attention inward. And all yoga helps us explore ourselves and get to know ourselves on a deeper level. And in this Yin practice, we really dive into that because we have so much time and space in the postures. And it's really about observing ourselves, our breath, our mind, our body for this next hour or so. Just arriving at your seat, noticing how you feel. If you're feeling full of energy, or if you're a little groggy or tired. Noticing if you feel restless with energy kind of running through you, or more on the still, grounded side, maybe even towards the side of lethargy or laziness, right? It's all on a spectrum. Noticing the level of mental activity. The mind is steady and pretty still, or if you have a lot of thoughts, there's a dialogue going on up there. And then simply noticing. So for this morning's practice, I'd like to offer the intention that during the practice and maybe even after the practice, what we're practicing is opening to the flow of energy through the body. You may experience that as a physical sensation. You know, prana can manifest itself as kind of tingling or pulsing or swirling. You feel something in your body. Another way we may experience the flow of energy source through us is with kind of a knowing, just an internal knowing, an intuitive awareness. And still others may experience the flow of prana as visual impressions, lights, or fully formed pictures or scenes. And still others may receive the flow of source in an auditory way, through sounds or voices. Feeling, seeing, hearing, and knowing. And most of us typically have one that predominates one sense, and then another one that's kind of the secondary. So as universal energy, prana or ki, flows through you, how do you experience that? Is that a feeling? Is that something you receive through your visual senses, that you visualize it or experience it as light? Or is that something that you receive through your sense of hearing? Or is it a knowing, just a sense of being connected, being part of the stream of life? There's no right or wrong way. We're all different in how we connect with this universal power source, right? It's the energy coming from the universe, coming from all creation, of which we are a part. As you inhale, open yourself to receiving energy from all around you. There's energy in the air, in light, in sunlight. If you live near water, there's energy from water, from the movement of water. Let's take 3 more breaths here. Just plugging in and receiving from source. And again, using whichever of your senses are your most awakened or dominant senses, and to receive this energy that's all around us. With an exhale, join hands together in front of the heart center. We're going to begin the practice with 1 round of Om together. Feel free to join me if you like. We'll start with a round of breath for ourselves. Deep breath in through the nose. And full, complete exhale from the nose. Let's take a breath in for Om. As you exhale, release the hands back to your lap and gently blink your eyelids open. Okay, we're going to begin on the back, and the class today we're going to focus on opening the hips, which will start with a Supta Baddha Konasana, or a reclined butterfly. You'll need 1 block, and you're going to place your outer ankles on the block. So you can come in either starting with the ankles on the block and then lowering yourself down into Baddha Konasana. Just, I think, probably the easiest way to go. Or you could try to come into the shape and then somehow wiggle your feet onto the block. Once you're in, tip the chin to the chest, relax the back of your neck, and start to let go in the hips, the creases of your hips, your groins. You may want to pick up your chest and move your shoulder blades away from your pelvis, re-tip chin to chest. So in the same way, we began the practice breathing and letting go into that flow of energy, of prana, of source. Keep letting go here. Letting go through the hips, the groins, the back of the pelvis. For a little additional opening across the chest, open up your arms so that your
wrists line up with your shoulders, your arms are open like a T. And then simply bend your elbows 90 degrees, palms face up. So you make the goalpost or cactus shape. And try your best to keep the elbows grounded. If that's not possible, you may want to opt to keep the arms extended and palms up. But if you can comfortably keep the elbows bent 90 degrees, that will offer a little bit more opening in the chest and shoulders. We're going to be here for about 3 more minutes. And focus on letting go on the exhale. Keep connecting into the hips and groins. You may notice that one hip is a little tighter than the other, one side of the pelvis. Just keep drawing your attention inward and letting go a little bit more with each exhale. And as you remain in this shape, you may notice that you receive information from this shape through one of those 4 modalities that I spoke about in the beginning of the practice, right? Visually, you may experience the pose by visualizing your hips, visualizing the release of energy from the hips, the groins. It may be through sound, maybe through sensation, or through some kind of inner knowing, where you just sense or know that something is happening, something is changing. Just keep checking in with yourself as we move through the practice, becoming present to how you process information. And remember that most of us have one dominant modality and one that is secondary. We'll stay here for about another minute. Keep letting go, relaxing the outer hips and thighs. with an exhale, you bring your arms back by your sides. We're going to actually press up while keeping the feet in Baddha Konasana. So if that's possible, start by tipping chin to chest and bringing your weight onto your forearms. And take your time to come up. And we're going to keep the feet on the block. You may need to move your pelvis away from the block a little bit. And then start to come forward and bring your hands forward of your shins. Now you might hold on to the front of the block or maybe the toes. With an inhale, find a gentle cow pose in the spine. Reach the breastbone forward. Feel your weight transfer onto the front of the sitting bones. Draw the shoulder blades down the back. And very gently just sway a little bit side to side. Very lightly transferring the weight from one sit bone to the next, to the other. And then find your way back to center with your hands on your block or on your feet. Inhale, draw the heart center forward like a cow. And then exhale, allow yourself to round forward. Maybe release the block or your feet, bringing your hands down to your mat. Your forearms may end up resting against your shins, and then relax the head, and you'll be in quite a rounded position here. And probably feel a good stretch down the back of the body. Relax your shoulders and your shoulder blades as much as you can. And let the head hang forward. We'll stay here for a couple more minutes. Keep letting go as you exhale. When you start to sink into this shape, you may be able to start wiggling your fingertips forward just a little bit and hinging deeper at the hip creases. Noticing the release in the body as you hold this pose for time. You may notice opportunities for going deeper simply by making very small adjustments in where your hands are placed, and allowing the torso to come forward a little more.
Very slowly inhale, begin to walk your torso back. Take your time. And once you're upright, place the hands behind you. Your fingertips can face towards you or away, doesn't really matter. Just take a little cow pose in your chest here, press into your hands, lift up through the breastbone. And then exhale, bring your hands further back behind you, begin to close up the knees. And then just step off your block, cross at your shins, move the block away. Let's come back to downward facing dog. Just rolling over the shins and stepping your way back into downward dog. You take your time. Allow the heels to sink down. This doesn't have to be the most active downward dog, just kind of assuming the shape and letting the rest fall into place. It may feel quite good to lift the sitting bones and tailbone up here, reversing the curve that we just took through the spine. A few more breaths here in downward dog. So even though this is a little bit more on the yang side of the spectrum, the way that we hold downward dog in yin helps us transition in between poses and recover a little bit of energy. Right? Those deep hip openers can really get us into that kind of stony yoga place. So even though this pose is a bit yang, it helps us recover our energy as we move to the next shape. Let's start to gently walk the hands backwards. And if there was that block nearby, just grab that block on your way back. Or maybe it's a towel or a rolled up blanket. But once you come into a standing forward fold, broaden your feet just a little bit and then take the block and place it in between your thighs, probably on the narrow setting. And then walk your feet back in again. Bend the knees gently, take hold of your elbows, let your torso hang over your thighs. The block in between the thighs just provides a little additional support as we dangle here. Again, it may feel really nice to tilt the sitting bones and the tailbones skyward as you let the crown of the head move towards the ground. Remember, your knees can be bent here. They do not need to be straight. Very gently rock your weight forward and back along the sole of your foot. Just feeling that gentle weight shift. And then see if you can find the center of your foot where your weight is even between the front and the back of the foot. Place the opposite forearm in front. And we'll stay here about another 30 seconds. The block also helps us keep our weight even across the sole of the foot. So notice if you're favoring the outer edge of your foot, just with awareness, make sure that the sole of the foot, inner and outer edge of the foot, is equally involved in your foundation of this shape. So you don't want to have all of your weight on the edges of your foundation, right? Make sure that you've got some weight on the inner edge of your foot as well. And the center of the heel. All right, let's release the hands down and start to walk yourself forward again. And keep the block between your thighs. And then lower down to the knees. You'll be in a tabletop with your block between your legs. Untuck the toes, but you can leave the block there for now. And inhale, come into cow pose. And stay here in cat. Allow that lumbar curve in the lower spine start to naturally come into shape. You might feel a little bit stiff at first, but we're just going to stay in this shape and breathe. Feel for the tailbone and the sitting bone starting to gently tilt up towards the block. And as that happens, you may find a little more release in the belly, letting the belly hang down, letting the heart lift up. Now with an exhale, come down to your forearms. You can leave the block where it is. And just wiggle your knees back until you can bring your pelvis down to the ground. And just kind of let the block adjust itself, right? Once you come down, the block will push up towards the ceiling. So we'll take Sphinx with the block. Bring your elbows under your shoulders. And there's just a little bit of an adjustment here. Push into the forearms, lift your low belly right above your pubic bone off your mat, and pull the whole front of the torso forward, and then lay it down. Let your lower back relax, the buttocks relax, the tip of the tail relaxes. Notice what you notice. Feel what you feel. Observe what you observe. So we may be receiving information by listening. We may be hearing messages from the body. Sometimes we receive those as fully formed ideas in our mind, right? Which can also be that sense of knowing. Some of you may visualize what's happening and sense it through kind of a mental picture. And some of you are more likely to feel. And some will have several of those happening at once. These are our modalities. How we speak indicates to a great deal how we experience the world. Some people say, I think. Some people say, I see. Some say, I know, or I understand, or I feel. Begin to notice how you process information coming from the world. Which of your senses or modalities are most predominant? And then stay here a couple more breaths. Relax the legs, the buttocks, right by the tip of the tailbone. With an exhale, start to gently flare your elbows out. Slowly lower the torso As you do so, stack your forearms or your hands and rest your forehead on your arms or hands, Makarasana, crocodile pose. Then exhale, bend the knees and just gently sway your shins a little left to right. The block will still be there in between your legs. And finding center, just keep the knees bent. Inhale. Exhale, extend the legs, bring the hands by your shoulders, press back to child's pose. This time, as you get back there, you can take your block, move it to the side. Keep your knees wide, toes together, press the hips back. Gently come into the pose. You can stack your hands and rest your forehead on your hands or extend the arms. Your choice. Let's keep the left arm extended and thread the right arm under the left, coming into thread the needle here. Turn your gaze towards the left, placing your left temple on the ground. And as you exhale, reach the hips towards the heels or let them relax back towards the heels. Inhale, extend your right arm forward. Bring the left arm underneath it, palm faces up. Turn your left cheek to the mat, placing the left temple down. Relax the hips towards the heels. With an inhale, bring your right hand back by your shoulder, press up. All right, and find your blocks. So we're going to set up some dragon poses. Take one block and place it on the low height on the left side of your mat. And the other one just up here for support somewhere. So we're going to place the left foot on your block. And getting into this may take a little wiggling around. You're going to have to tuck your right toes under, lift your thigh, wiggle your knee back, and then set it back down. Now, that second block could come under the shoulders and you could lift up onto the block. You might bring it down or bring your forearms to the block or some other setup. I'm seeing through the camera that my block needs to come back a little bit. So you want to have your knees stacked over the ankle And then use your second block to support you at the height that you need. I'm getting a little deeper into this left hip today. Once you're in, just relax the neck, let the head hang forward. So more than likely, you're going to feel your weight shifting to the outer edge of your left foot. But every so often, bring your attention to the inner edge of your right foot. And just by gently shifting your attention to the inner edge of the foot, you may find that the sensation or the focal point of the pose changes. So it's not like we're really pushing down so much through the inner edge. Just bringing your attention to the inner edge of the foot will probably start to balance how much of the weight is on the inner and outer edge. Again, just gently trying to balance that out so the inner edge of the foot receives as much pressure as the outer edge. Also let go through the right side. And a really deep release through the right psoas, the belly. With an inhale, start to gently press your torso up. Move the block on the right-hand side out of the way. Now we're actually going to go purposely onto the outer edge of the left foot. So you might need to hold your block as you make that transition. Come onto the pinky toe side of your left foot so the knee opens up. Now here, I think both hands down on the mat is probably the best bet, or both hands down on the block, because you're going to want a cow pose here in your chest. So lift up through the heart center. We won't be here that long, about a minute, maybe 90 seconds. Just do your best to reach your heart away from your hips. Just a couple more breaths here. Focus on reaching and lifting the heart away from the hips. And then very slowly start to press back the right hip until you can bring the sole of the left foot back flat onto the block. Release that. And let's come onto the hands and knees, move your blocks out of the way. And let's come down to the belly again. Make your way down, taking your time. And we're going to find Makarasana here. Legs go wide and stack your wrists or your forearms, rest your head there. Just notice what you feel between the left and the right hip and leg. And place your hands under your shoulders. Press up, hands and knees, tabletop position. And take one block, place it at the front, and then the second block now on the right side on the lowest height. So getting into this shape takes a little finagling, right? But step your right foot onto your block. Make sure that the center of your right knee stacks up over the center of your ankle. And then probably you'll need to tuck your left toes under your thigh, move your left knee back, and then untuck the back toes. It may take a little negotiation to make sure that the right knee is stacked over the ankle. And then a block can be on the low height, the medium height. You can be on tall arms, maybe starting on tall arms and then making your way down to the forearms. Now, wherever you are, bring your attention to the sole of your right foot. And without so much pressure or pushing, just notice, right? The noticing can often be all that we need to shift our attention to the inner edge of the foot so that inner and outer edge receive equal amounts of pressure. You take your time to negotiate going into this pose more deeply. You may take a few breaths before you're ready to go deeper. Just listen to the body. Relax the jaw, the pelvic floor. And let go. We're staying here for about another minute or so.
Very slowly begin to lift yourself up. And then come to the outer edge of your right foot. So the pinky toe side of the foot comes down to the block. The knee swings open. Now here we're going to keep an open chest. So whether it's palms down on your mat or using blocks, lift your heart like in cow. And exhale, relax through the hips.
This one will hold about 90 seconds, so a little bit of a shorter hold in this version. Really focus on reaching the heart center up and away. Now you can always do this without the block, right? If the block is too much in any of these shapes, or if you didn't have a block, you're still getting a whole lot out of these poses for the hips. The block adds a new layer, a new level of awareness, especially if you've been practicing Yin for a while. Keep letting go as you exhale. Three more breaths. Now to come out, start to gently pull the left hip back, transitioning the sole of the right foot back down to your mat. Step off of the block. Move your blocks away. We're coming back to the belly for Makarasana. Take your time. And stack the forearms or the wrists, legs about as wide as your mat. Rest your forehead on your arms. Bring the hands underneath your shoulders. Lift up to the hands and knees, and we're going to take one downward dog here, one more. So when you're ready, inhale, and on an exhale, the hips come up. Again, it doesn't need to be your most energetic downward dog ever. Just kind of put your body in the shape and feel, or know, or listen. Right? We all receive information in a different way. Exhale, soften the knees back to your mat. Go ahead and lower your hips to one side. Bring the legs around to the front. We're going to set up for final Shavasana now. So if you have been working with blocks, you can lay down and put the blocks under the crease of the buttocks, which will support the thighs. You could also do that with a rolled up blanket or towel. Or you can just take Shavasana without any propping. If your lower back needs more support, keep the knees bent and the feet on the floor as you take Shavasana. You may want to wiggle your shoulder blades up and away from your pelvis, lengthen chin to chest, and then bring the head back down. And close the eyes and rest. Gently begin to deepen your breath. If you had blocks or a blanket under your thighs, or if your legs were straight, as you're ready, you can gently begin to bend your knees. And then just roll your body to whichever side, coming into fetal pose and resting there on your side for a moment. Press yourself up. Find a nice tall seat with your eyes closed. And as you come to your seat, just notice the energy in your hips and groins and lower back. Just noticing if things either feel or you just know, you sense, you visualize, maybe you hear that the hips feel different than they did at the beginning of the practice. Exhale, bring the hands together at the heart. And let's seal the practice with one round of Om. We'll start with a round of breath for ourselves. Take a deep breath in through your nose. Exhale completely. And take a breath in for Om.
Exhale and bow forehead towards the fingertips. And sealing in the practice, bowing in gratitude for the practice of yoga, for the Sangha, the community that builds around the practice of yoga, and for yourself, for showing up for yourself today and giving yourself this time to connect.
Namaste.